Curly Howard, born Jerome Lester Horowitz on October 22, 1903, in Brooklyn, New York, was more than just a comedian. He was an icon whose influence continues to be felt decades after his untimely death. As one of the most cherished members of the Three Stooges, Curly's comedic genius brought laughter to millions. His antics, facial expressions, and unique vocalization set him apart as a comedic savant, a man who could elicit laughter with the mere arch of an eyebrow or the utterance of a simple "nyuk, nyuk, nyuk." But behind the scenes of this laughter-filled career was a life riddled with personal struggles, health issues, and a tragic decline that ultimately led to his heartbreaking end. Jerome Jerry Lester Horowitz was the youngest of 5 sons born to Solomon and Jenny Horowitz, Jewish immigrants who had left their native Lithuania to seek a better life in the United States. Growing up in the rough neighborhoods of Brooklyn, Jerry was a shy, insecure child, a stark contrast to the larger-than-life persona he would later embody on screen. His family, however, was anything but dull. With his older brothers, Benjamin, who would later become known as Shemp, Samuel, who adopted the name Mo, and Milton, who passed away in infancy, the Horowitz household was filled with humor and wit. It was in this lively environment that young Jerry began to cultivate his sense of comedy. Curly's early years were marked by both promise and peril. An accident at the age of 12 left him with a limp, a physical defect that made him self-conscious and introverted. This injury, however, would later become a part of his comedic repertoire, as he used his physicality to great effect in his performances. Despite his shyness, Jerry showed an early talent for entertaining others, often performing impromptu skits for family and friends. These early performances, filled with physical comedy and a unique sense of timing, hinted at the brilliance that would later make him a star. By the early 1930s, Curly's older brothers, Mo and Shemp, had already started making a name for themselves in vaudeville, performing as part of a comedy act known as Ted Healy and his Stooges. When Shemp decided to leave the act to pursue a solo career, Mo suggested that Jerry step in as his replacement. But there was a catch: Ted Healy was skeptical about Jerry's suitability for the group. Jerry, with his full head of thick, curly hair, didn't seem to fit the image of a stooge. In a move that would change his life forever, Jerry shaved his head on the spot, earning the nickname Curly and securing his place in the act. Curly's entry into the Three Stooges marked the beginning of a legendary career. His physical comedy, characterized by a blend of agility, spontaneity, and childlike innocence, made him an instant sensation. Unlike other comedians of his time, Curly's humor was rooted in his ability to transform his insecurities into laughter. Whether he was twisting his face into a ridiculous expression or delivering one of his signature woo-woo-woo vocalizations, Curly had an innate ability to make audiences forget their troubles and laugh until they cried. His on-screen persona was that of a lovable oaf, a man whose simplicity and naivete made him the perfect foil to Mo's domineering presence and Larry's befuddled confusion. But Curly was far from simple. Beneath his zany exterior was a man who understood the complexities of timing, rhythm, and audience engagement. His performances were a masterclass in comedic execution, each gesture and sound carefully crafted to maximize laughter. Throughout the 1930s and 1940s, Curly Howard became one of the most beloved comedians in America. As the star of the Three Stooges, Curly's influence was unmatched. The trio's short films, produced by Columbia Pictures, were wildly popular, offering audiences a much-needed escape from the harsh realities of the Great Depression and later, World War II. Curly's performances during this period were nothing short of legendary. His ability to blend physical comedy with a sense of whimsy made him a favorite among viewers of all ages. What set Curly apart was his willingness to go to any length to get a laugh. Whether he was throwing himself into a pratfall, contorting his face into ridiculous expressions, or engaging in rapid-fire banter with his fellow Stooges, Curly's commitment to his craft was total. His humor was not just about slapstick, it was about creating a world where the impossible became possible, where the laws of physics were bent to serve the purpose of comedy. Curly's genius lay in his ability to make the absurd seem believable, and his performances were a delightful mix of chaos and control. Despite his on-screen success, Curly's personal life was far more turbulent. His relationships with women were often fraught with difficulty, and his 4 marriages all ended in divorce. Curly's need for love and acceptance, possibly stemming from his childhood insecurities, led him to seek solace in alcohol and fleeting romances. His inability to find lasting happiness in his personal life stood in stark contrast to the joy he brought to millions through his work. As the 1940s drew on, the physical demands of Curly's performances began to take a toll on his health. His weight, which had always been a concern, ballooned, and his drinking became more pronounced. The relentless schedule of filming, coupled with the pressure to maintain his comedic energy, exacerbated his condition. Curly's once flawless timing and agility began to wane, and he found it increasingly difficult to perform the physical stunts that had made him famous. In 1945, Curly suffered the first of several strokes, a warning sign that his body could no longer keep up with the demands of his career. This stroke, which occurred during the filming of If a Body Meets a Body, was a turning point. Curly's speech became slurred, and his movements were slower and less precise. Despite these challenges, Curly was determined to continue working, driven by a deep-seated fear of being forgotten by his audience. But the strokes kept coming, each one leaving him weaker and less able to perform. By the time he filmed Half-Wits Holiday in 1946, Curly was a shell of his former self. His final appearance as a stooge was marked by a tragic inability to perform even the simplest routines. After suffering yet another stroke on set, Curly was forced to retire from the act that had made him a household name. It was a heartbreaking moment for his brothers, his colleagues, and his fans, who had watched him bring so much laughter to the world. Curly's departure from the Three Stooges marked the beginning of a long and painful decline. His health continued to deteriorate, and he spent much of his remaining years in and out of hospitals and care facilities. The man who had once been the life of the party, the source of endless laughter, was now bedridden, dependent on others for even the most basic needs. In these final years, Curly's struggles with depression became more pronounced. The laughter that had once been his lifeline was now a distant memory, replaced by the harsh reality of illness and isolation. Despite the best efforts of his family, particularly Mo, who remained by his side throughout his illness, Curly's condition worsened. His once bright spirit was dimmed by the weight of his physical and emotional burdens. In 1952, after years of suffering, Curly Howard passed away at the age of 48. His death marked the end of an era, not just for the Three Stooges, but for the world of comedy as a whole. The news of his passing was met with an outpouring of grief from fans and fellow comedians alike. Curly was laid to rest at Home of Peace Cemetery in Los Angeles, and his grave became a pilgrimage site for those who had been touched by his genius. Curly Howard's legacy is one of both joy and sorrow. His contributions to comedy are undeniable, and his influence can be seen in the work of countless performers who have followed in his footsteps. Curly's unique style of humor, characterized by a blend of physicality, absurdity, and genuine emotion, set him apart from other comedians of his time. His work with the Three Stooges remains a touchstone of American comedy, and his performances continue to entertain audiences around the world. But Curly's life also serves as a cautionary tale about the pressures of fame and the toll it can take on those who achieve it. Behind the laughter was a man who struggled with his own demons, whose life was cut short by illness and personal hardship. Curly's story is a reminder that even the most gifted performers are not immune to the challenges of life, and that the price of bringing joy to others can sometimes be personal pain. Despite the tragic elements of his life, Curly Howard's legacy is ultimately one of love and laughter. He remains one of the most beloved figures in the history of comedy, and his work continues to inspire and entertain. Curly's ability to make people laugh, even in the face of his own struggles, is a testament to his extraordinary talent and enduring spirit. In the years since his death, Curly Howard has been celebrated and remembered in numerous ways. The Three Stooges films continue to be broadcast on television, and new generations of fans discover the timeless humor that Curly brought to the screen. His catchphrases, mannerisms, and comedic brilliance have become ingrained in popular culture, ensuring that his memory lives on. Curly's influence extends beyond the realm of comedy. His ability to connect with audiences on an emotional level, to make them feel as well as laugh, set him apart as a performer. He was not just a comedian, he was an artist who used humor as a means of exploring the human condition. Curly's work reminds us that comedy is not just about making people laugh, it is about creating a bond between performer and audience, a shared experience that transcends time and place.